My name's Rob Fenton. I'm head teacher at the National Envioronment Centre, which is a specialist TAFE campus near Albury in southern New South Wales. We run a 400-acre certified organic farm. One of my roles here is teaching organic farming. Our major livestock production on the farm is sheep, African fat-tail sheep. Previously we had other grazing animals, goats and cattle, but as the climate shifted on us over the last decade, we've been destocking until now really our major focus is sheep. We're going to change that over time with other things such as free-range chooks and free-range pigs and things, but at the moment it's just sheep. For a conventional farmer in this area, the major health issues for sheep farmers during the growing season would be internal parasites, a range of them, and during the dry season it would be external parasites like sheep blowflies and lice. Because we're an organic farm here and we focus on creating health in our animals rather than dealing with health issues as they arise, most of our animals aren't challenged by these diseases and ill health problems. That's the joy of one of the joys of organic farming, is the fact that once you get a system up and running properly, then you don't tend to get sick livestock. One of the keys to creating health in animals is reducing stress. Typically, people would look at reducing stress in terms of climate stress. It's a cold day outside today, so you'd have them in a warm paddock, or if it's a hot day, you'd have them in a shady paddock, etc. And typically, people would think about stress in terms of nutrition, so that they've got energy at the right time and protein and all that sort of stuff. But we take it further on this farm, where we focus on psychological stresses in the animals as well. And so some of the reasons why animals aren't happy in most food production systems is they may be isolated from their natural group. They may not be able to express themselves as sheep or as chooks or whatever. And so we do things like that. For example, very often sheep that are coming up to 12 months old get taken away from their mother, weaned, and put in a paddock with a whole lot of other sheep of the same age, just weaned. Now, I've got teenage children, and I can just imagine what would happen if I just put all my teenage children in with a whole lot of other teenage children. And so we try and make sure that they have grandmothers with them as well, so they continue to learn how to be sheep while they're isolated from the rest of the mob. That has a number of benefits. One of them is they learn what are the right things to eat at the right time of the year. They learn where the good parts and the bad parts of the paddock are, and they also learn how to move from one paddock to another on the farm because they're with experienced animals. I think most farmers know it. It's a matter of, I think anyway, we try and put ourselves in the place of the sheep and think about how they're sentient beings just like us, just thinking about how we would be reacting in the situation. And that's led to a whole range of, weird things that we do on the farm. In our boring paddocks, we have playgrounds so the sheep don't get bored, and a whole lot of other things like that. I think that isolating one thing inside the ecosystem isn't necessarily the way to think about it. We don't have many dung beetles on this place. We have a whole range of microorganisms and macroorganisms that work together in the soil. To focus on one or the other of those organisms in the soil, I think, is wrong. It's at the risk of mismanaging the whole ecosystem. If you've got a healthy soil ecosystem that is very diverse and is very, very active, then that tends to drive health through the whole system. And so instead of trying to react to a single problem such as parasites in dung on the ground, if the whole system is active and working, then those sort of things tend to happen automatically anyway, to the point where there's probably many organisms, fungi, bacteria, virus, that naturally predate on worm eggs and things in dung on the ground, not only dung beetles. And if there's a really diverse system, they're likely to be active anyway. So it's a matter of looking at the ecosystem upper level. Instead of looking at it at a species level, you try and look at it at a higher level from the animal or the plant community point of view, and try and see the whole picture. Because the soil tests you can get done for food production are only based on plant nutrients, and plants use different nutrients than animals do, And no doubt the other different groups of other different kingdoms of living things use different ones as well. Then it's quite limiting just to base your whole food production system on plant nutrients, where after all we're producing food for people. And so within those limitations we've still got to try and make sure that the iodine's there that the plants don't need but we do, and other things like that. So one of the best things you can do is use a shotgun method, which is seaweed. And so any sea-based fertilisers or fish-based fertilisers have all those different micronutrients in them that aren't necessarily needed by the plant but are needed by us. And, you know, organic farmers are about producing really high quality, healthy food for people. Where if we just focus on the plant nutrients, well, we're not doing that. Be able to create healthy, happy animals, it's all really a way of thinking. You know, being a farmer all your life, you think about sheep in one way, and maybe in order to think in terms of creating health rather than dealing with ill health issues, it's about changing the mindset completely. And thinking about the animal as a single living sentient being rather than a production unit in a system. So that's the first bit. I think the second bit is that the landscape needs to be really carefully designed to make that happen as well. You know, the two keys to creating healthy animals is healthy soil and then a productive landscape. And it needs to have both those things working together. Our customers that buy our production from the farm here have got a really complex idea about what constitutes food quality. It needs to taste good, it needs to be good for you, you need to be able to afford to buy it, all those things that happen in the supermarket, but there's a whole range of other things as well. One of those is the care we take with our animals and the welfare of our animals. It's becoming more and more common to have conversations with our customers about that type of thing. We promote it. We unashamedly promote our production system to our customers to say, this is why you should buy our food. But whereas 10 years ago, I would have known everyone in the local community that would have come and bought our organic lamb at the local farmers market. Now it's totally different, and more people are becoming aware of all those different quality issues. So it's the animal welfare, it's the environmental impact of the farm, it's food miles, it's how we interact with the rest of the community. There's a whole lot of things that go to making up food quality now. That's very hard to do if you're a farmer and your food is disappearing into the large production chain and ending up in a supermarket where you don't know who's going to buy your food. But because we sell directly to the people that eat our food, we have direct contact and understand our customers really deeply because of it. For someone that's about to start organic sheep production, for example, the trick is to try and change the way you think. When I are teaching classes about organic farming, or I talk to farmers groups around the country about organic farming, the first questions people always ask is, well, what do you do about worms, or what do you do about this, and what do you do about that? That shows that they still don't really understand what organic farming brings to the table, because you don't get them. And so dealing with all these issues of system ill health, weeds, as well as diseases and pests and all the other things are all dealt with by developing up a really tight organic farming system. So that when a farmer's starting to become an organic farmer, one of the first things they do is to develop an organic management plan, and that is an absolute key, because instead of just saying, it's not like you're substituting non-organic ways of doing something with organic inputs. It's changing the whole system. That takes some time and some thought and some changes in the way you think. So when people ask those questions first, how do you deal with worms in sheep, you know that they've got to change their thinking before they can actually seriously think about being organic farming, because if you get your system right, that doesn't happen. If our animals are happy, then they're more likely to be healthy as well, just like you or me.